Why is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
See, that's what I love about Atlantic City. And I say this like I'm an expert. I've been twice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, every every business entity there so wants to make it a thing.
Yeah.
And the world is saying, I'm good, but they still
Yeah.
really want to try it.
You
It's
don't.
just the level of like they're aiming high, and then it's
Yeah.
like Pauly D is spinning. This is our like, you know, Diddy ambitions.
Yeah. But that's very Jersey.
Yes. And every single time I forget that all the streets in Monopoly are named after
Right.
Atlantic. So, hang a right on Ventnor, and it's bizarre.
Wait, did you see the town in Vegas? By the way, I meant to
Yes.
send this to you on Instagram. I'm not going to find it. There is a neighborhood in Vegas. This is perfectly tracking. I mean, maybe I know where it is. They named all the streets after Pokemon.
Oh, interesting.
But there it is. But it's just the best names though, because it's like meet me on the corner of Jigglypuff and Charmander, or my personal favorite, I live on Squirtle Lane.
Squirtle. Oh.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
And it's like Charizard. I mean, I don't even know who these Poke people are. Snorlax.
The worst part about all of this is
You know
say
who
all
they are.
I know all of those names.
Yeah, I don't know them. I'm a bad aunt. But I mean,
it's awful. I don't know what any of them mean. That is great. So how much is the Sega Corporation paying them to do that?
Right.
There's got to be.
And like, is Pikachu like high rent district, or is it like?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's
right.
That's your rodeo.
I mean, or your boardwalk.
Very true.
Right.
But there's got to be some sort of corporate thing or like, what's their grand plan? Because I know Jim Thorpe, PA, was he born in Pennsylvania? He was not.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, he was not born in Jim Thorpe, PA. They did it because they wanted him to move there and thought, like, we'll have an attraction. We'll have a celebrity here.
Of course.
And it worked.
Yes, it would.
Him and Mrs. Thorpe were like, hell, why not?
If they make us like Flash, South Dakota, we're moving there.
Oh, please. Yes. But in Vegas, Squirtle's not moving in.
No, but a lot of porn stars are going to move on that street. So they will, I mean, if you build it, they will come. It just might not be the same you had in mind.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right?
That's amazing.
I know. Which leads me to, there's got to be a whole Pokemon porn series, because all of these names are filthy.
Yeah, no, pretty much. I mean, it's that thing. What's the saying about like, if it's X number of, if it's so X popular, then it will get its own porn thing? Or is it just like any interest you have, someone has made porn out of it?
Yes, that too.
So we should call our friends down at the Highlight place.
We do need to call them. We need to start booking some of our journeys.
I was thinking highlight porn, but yes, journeys too.
Highlight porn would be like really fetishy.
Oh, a lot of wicker.
A lot of wicker. Lots of wicker.
As much rattan as far as the eye can see.
Lots of like injuries and like beatings and.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like a BDSM thing going on there.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Definitely some GIMP action.
When you were growing up, a little baby Volt in West Newton, Massachusetts, how did you get into this stuff? I know there was a Halloween House of Horrors.
Yeah, the Dungeon of the Halloween Experiments. Well, I started working with electricity when I was 5. My dad bought me batteries and wires and light bulbs and switches down on Canal Street in lower Manhattan, when they had all these surplus stores back there, because there's a lot of light industry in Manhattan in the early 70s. And he showed me how to wire up circuits, and I was hooked. I mean, it really is magic, right? And so I started doing that, and had a Radio Shack kit. It was called 101 kit, and I still have it. I'm showing my children how to use it. It's for making electronic circuits. And then in 1975, I saw my first Tesla coil. A neighbor had built it, and he still has it. I'm still in communication with him, almost 50 years later. And I was really entranced with the Tesla coil because it looked so cool, and it made electricity shoot out into the air. Because up to then, I thought of electricity as being something that was imprisoned in the wires, but you can really set it free like lightning.
What was it about electricity that a lot of people are terrified of it as kids? What was it about it that intrigued you and drew you to that?
Exactly that. It's dangerous, and it's different. It's outside of your ordinary experience, right? You associate it with lightning. I mean, that's lightning. Fear of lightning is the primal fear in all animals, really. They're all terrified of it, and it's encoded in your DNA. So the idea that you can summon lightning at will and control it is very attractive.
And so, to jump ahead a few years, you've built your own Tesla coil, which is a sentence that just blows my mind that anybody can just do that. But then you come up with this idea or this concept that I think if I wear a metal suit, I can then have light. You explain it, because I went to art school.
Yeah, I built the first Tesla coil, my first coil, in 1981, and I had some help from a guy that I met in Boston, but he didn't know much either. And I also got some information from an old Scientific American article, which turned out to be very useless. But so I started building Tesla coils when I was 14 in 1981, but I never wanted to get anywhere near them. I was always afraid to get close to them.
Sure.
I shocked. And that was for the Dungeon of the Halloween Experiments, that Halloween show that I was involved with in the early 80s. And then when I was in graduate school, I built the big Tesla coil, the one that I have now. And after a few years of playing with it, I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice to get close to it so I can, for one thing, troubleshoot it and see what's going on in the circuit while it's running, get really close to it. And I had recalled that at the Boston Museum of Science, they opened the Theater of Electricity there, I think in 1980 or 81.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting into coils, and I grew up near that museum, and they have a large Van de Graaff generator there. I think it's still the largest air insulated Van de Graaff generator built by Van de Graaff himself in the 1930s. And they have it in the Theater of Electricity, and they put the operator of the machine in a giant bird cage like structure, and he or she is protected from the lightning from the Van de Graaff generator by this thing called the skin effect, which is like the Faraday effect, but it's for electrodynamics as opposed to electrostatics. So when you have a fast pulse of electrical current that hits metal, the current flows on the outside of the conductor, doesn't go inside, and that has to do with the nature of magnetic fields. And so the fact that the operator could be inside this cage and actually touch the inside of the cage while the machine was operating was an existence proof that it's possible to be protected from high voltage electricity if you're inside of a cage. And so I had some friends of mine build a cage, and we put it next to a large Tesla coil in San Francisco. And this was in the summer of 96. And I have a photograph of that. It was in National Geographic. The July 97 issue of National Geographic has an article called Robot Revolution. And I'm in a 2-page photo in my cage, and the cage is being hit by lightning from the Tesla coil. And while I was in the cage, I touched the side of the cage, and I didn't feel a shock. So then I knew that I could take the cage and shrink it down to a bodysuit where it was contacting my skin and I wouldn't get shocked. So, because a bodysuit is really just a cage that's skin tight, right? Or form fitting.
Mhm.
So that was the invention. That was the moment of invention. However, I have to say that I did not invent the idea of getting inside of a metal suit and getting near high voltage. That had been done years prior for guys that work on high voltage power lines. They could get dropped onto power lines from a helicopter and actually work on live lines. And there's lots of videos of guys doing this. So that kind of suit was already existed. Also, there were suits that people wore that were working on military radar systems where the radar's live and you wear this metal suit, like a mesh suit, and it protects you from getting burned from the radar, because if you stand in front of a powerful military radar, like on a Navy ship, it'll heat your body up. That's how the microwave oven was invented. A guy was working on radar and he had a chocolate bar in his pocket and it melted from the microwave energy. So
But he
again,
had lunch 20 minutes before everyone else.
Right.
So
I don't claim that I invented the idea of a suit to protect me from high voltage, but I think I'm the first person to ever get into a suit and get near a big Tesla coil, at least that nobody's shown me evidence to the contrary. There have been people claiming that they did it earlier. One of them was this big fat idiot named DC Cox from Wisconsin, who's now deceased, and he claimed that he had done a suit in the 70s. And I said, well, do you have any pictures of that or video? No, I don't have anything. Well, okay. The guy was a chronic liar too. There's a lot of weird people in the Tesla coil world, like just amateurs and pros alike. Anyway, so I think I'm the first person to try that. And what I love is that Tesla could have done this himself, but he never did. As far as we know, he never built a suit. He could have. The technology to build the suit is been around since the Middle Ages, right? It's basically chainmail. So I would love to be able to go back in time with a suit and go into Tesla's lab and get near his coil and see how he would react to that.
yeah, hey Nicola, get in this thing.
Yeah, I mean,
Was
he would have loved it, right? I hope.
yeah.
He would have hated guts, but I think he seemed like the kind of person that would have said, "Oh, that's fantastic." Like from what I know about him, he was a good guy compared to Edison.
Right.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you always hear, and people always say, oh, on TV, don't try this at home, kids, that kind of thing. And I mean, I get nervous as a child when you did the thing with the 9-volt battery and you put it on your tongue and you
I
felt
so
the little
love doing that.
Yeah, that tracks. And like that made me nervous.
You can do a 45-volt battery. There's a 45.
Jesus, you've got
to.
I don't think I could do that.
So of course you have.
What was it like?
Painful.
Yeah, it have to be. It would have to be. Like, just like, why did I do that?
I also, one time I was stripping zip cord, which is, like lamp cord, and it was plugged in, and I got a shock when I was 18. I was working on a Halloween show and I forgot to unplug the wire and went to strip it with my teeth and got a nice shock in my mouth. So don't do it. Don't try that at home for sure.
Well, but so everyone is saying, and maybe I just have no self-esteem and no faith in myself, but what is going through your mind, the first time you put on the suit where you're going, all right, everything makes me think this will not kill me. Yeah, but you don't know until you actually do it.
It's true. But what I did is I did the way, imagine if you want to work your way up to diving off a 60-foot cliff, right? You don't start with that. You start at 3 feet and then you go to 5 feet and 10 feet and 30
and then
feet.
I'm good. Oh, then you go to 30 feet. Right. Yes. So that's next.
I did a progressive set of tests where I started with a small handheld Tesla coil that was used for leak checking and vacuum systems. And the first time I got zapped by that thing, which makes the spark maybe an inch long, I got a shock because my suit wasn't connected properly. Like the top and the bottom weren't connected together. So I learned a lesson at very low risk and low voltage and fixed it. And then, so I was okay. And then then I graduated to a 2-foot discharge. You have 24 inch discharge from one of my smaller coils, which I built in 1992, again, for a Halloween show. So I built a bunch of everything I've ever done with Tesla coils really started with Halloween, but I was okay with the 2-foot discharge from the coil, which I still have, was fine, didn't hurt. So then I went to a 5-foot discharge from another guy's coil, and then finally worked with the big coil with a 15-foot discharge. And I was definitely nervous about the 15-foot coil, and my heart was beating fast. And I said, look, just give me a really short burst, right? Just a fraction of a second, and then talk to me and I'll tell you if I'm okay. You know, you'll see though. If I don't feel anything, then I'll say, yeah, do it again. And that's exactly what happened. I didn't feel any shock. And so we started doing it again. And I have video of that. It's pretty cool because I got this big smile on my face because I knew it was going to work. And, you know, so that was the birth of Dr. Megavolt, that it actually worked. And then I thought, this could be really popular, you know, because it's so visually arresting. And sure enough, you know, 2 years later, we were performing at Burning Man for thousands of people, and people were going crazy for it, and they're still talking about it.
Well, how did that come about? Because I mean, like, again, the idea of taking this scientific experiments, this proof of, you know, here's the command that man has over electricity in some form, and bring it to a bunch of naked hippies in the desert.
Well, that, you know, Burning Man.
Am I oversimplifying things?
Right. I mean, I feel like naked hippies would love it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But the naked hippie thing has really been played up a bit in the press. I mean, there is that contingent at Burning Man, but I first went there in '96, and there was a lot more hippie vibe than tech vibe. But in the next couple of years after that, the tech crowd really discovered Burning Man and started bringing out some really interesting art installations and things that they had built. And that made it much more compelling for me, because I don't care for drum circles and bonfire, dancing around the bonfire. It's not my thing, but I liked all the interesting technology that people brought out there. So that was really the hook. And my friend Chris Campbell said we should bring the coil to Burning Man and Dr. Megavolt. It actually wasn't named Dr. Megavolt at that point. I came up with that name in 1999.
That's when you got your doctorate?
No, I had gotten my doctorate in 95 actually, but we were calling it Electrobot. And it also didn't really have much of a name. So we performed at Burning Man 98 with the coil. We had the coil and the suit out there, but the coil didn't work very well because Burning Man is such a harsh environment for equipment like that. And so we had a lot of problems with the Tesla coil. But I managed to get a few shows to work, and it was enough to convince the Burning Man top brass that they should fund Dr. Megavolt to come back the next year in 1999. And that was the best year in some ways for Megavolt, because thousands of people saw it, and there was very little going on at night, except for Dr. Megavolt. So we did it 4 nights in a row. We didn't have problems with equipment. The weather was excellent. It wasn't too hot, and there wasn't a lot of dust storms. And it was a huge hit. We went back in 2000 with 2 coils on the roof of a bigger truck, and that was amazing. But the weather was awful, and we had a lot of technical problems that were directly and indirectly caused by the weather. The dust and the rain was a huge problem. But we were able to get some really good shows to happen, and then I just kept doing it. I kept doing shows there until 2003 was the last the last one. And then in 2004, I took a break, and I went to Burning Man, but didn't do a show, and then didn't go in 2005. Went back in 2006 did the 2 Coil show again, because there was some guy who was doing a copycat show at Burning Man. And I thought, well, we should go back out and do a better show than him. And actually, he had a lot of problems with his equipment. So we went back in 2006, again, had technical problems. There was also a lot of personnel problems. I didn't have a good crew, and there was a big epidemic of meth at Burning Man that year. And so there was a lot of people acting very irrationally and really unpleasant. So then I took a few years off, and we went back in 2010, did a show. It was great. My wife videotaped it for a documentary that she made about Dr. Megavolt. And then I went back one more year in 2011, and it was just really anticlimactic. And the event had gotten so much bigger by then, and so much more exciting stuff was happening, that Megavolt felt like it was just one of many great things going on. And I wasn't getting as much attention as I wanted for it. And so I just said, I'm not going to do this again. It was also expensive.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
But the
looking
Burning Man was that we were able to get funding for 4 different years of Burning Man from the Burning Man organizations, basically paid for everything. And it was a great advertising for the business, because I ended up getting a lot of work in TV and like Discovery Channel, and I was on a ton of TV shows, and Germany's Next Top Model, and just
sure.
a lot of travel. So that was good. So I mean, it's a business. It's not a hobby at this point. It's really very much of a business.
Well,
Was that?
oh,
Go.
you can go.
Mm-mm.
Oh, I was gonna say, looking at photos, watching the video in the film, it's impressive. You know, especially the Burning Man stuff, but all of it is just, from a layperson, mind-bogglingly
Yeah.
impressive. Do you still have that sense of, I can't believe this works? I can't believe that a human being can do this. Like, are you still
That human
wowed by it?
being, right?
Yeah,
Are you
I
still
really
wowed by it?
appreciate it. I do. I enjoy being in the suit and being near the coil, because it focuses the mind in an interesting way. I mean, it really captures your attention and your focus. So it's like a meditation. The last show that we did with the big coil was at this conference called Amazon Mars, and you can read about it on marsconference.com. But it's a conference that's hosted by Jeff Bezos, and it's 200 people, invitation only. I went to it in my professional capacity as a infrared imaging scientist in 2019, and Jeff Bezos saw one of my Tesla coils, which I had brought to the event, the backpack Tesla coil. And then I showed him a video of Megavolt, and he said, well, you got to come and do that at the next Mars. So we made the arrangements, but then COVID got in the way. Like 11 days before March 2020, it was canceled. So obviously COVID disrupted a lot of people's plans, but I used the time to rebuild the whole system and the suit from top to bottom, which took about 18 months. And so when the fall of 2022 came around, they were saying, yeah, we're going to do Mars again. And so we said, and they said, we want you to do Megavolt. So we ended up doing the show at the end of March last year, so 2022, and it was a big hit. So there was like 200 people watching me and my wife perform, and Jeff Bezos was right in the front row laughing his head off. He has a very distinctive laugh. And there was a lot of other really interesting and cool people in the audience: Adam Savage, Darren Aronofsky, Ron Howard, the CEO of Volkswagen. I mean, on and on. It was really cool. And then there was a big party afterwards, and my wife and I went to it, and so we talked to a bunch of people. Jewel was there. She performed right before our show.
Oh,
So
that's going to blow her off the stage.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, some great music,
Right,
great
but
singer, but you can't literally hold a candle.
kind of kills the vibe. Yeah. Right.
She performed, and then they said, we have a special treat for you. And then we did our show, which was very short. It was like 5 or 6 minutes, but basically Jewel opened for Dr. and Mistress Meg.
There
She
you
was
go.
I think, because she didn't want to talk to my wife. And
Well,
I do a little bit. I thought she was really very nice. And man, she's so beautiful. She looks exactly like she did in 1998. I said to her, did you just step out of a time machine from 1998? Which I realized afterwards was kind of a maybe kind of a left-handed compliment. But anyways, it was a great event, and that was the last show that I'd done with the big coil. And we did a rehearsal for that too, like 3 weeks before Mars. We did a full dress rehearsal and tested out a new prop, which we called the sodium lightsaber. It didn't work the way I had planned. It was evacuated tube made out of a special material called fused silica, and we put sodium metal in there, and the sodium was supposed to vaporize and fill the tube with sodium vapor that would then light up a blinding orange yellow color. It didn't work, so we ended up doing it with neon gas. So I had an old tank of neon gas from that,
as you do,
Right.
30-year-old tank of neon, and that neon, those atoms of neon are still good after 30 years, and they'll still be good in 1 billion years, in fact, because it's an inert gas. But it lit up the tube with like a neon sign, this bright orange light. And what was really amazing is that the vacuum return that sucked back the neon, it was because it was an open loop system. So we're flowing neon in at low pressure and then sucking it back. The whole rubber tube lit up brightly. So there was electricity going through the ionized neon all the way back through a 20-foot rubber hose. And the hose was glowing from the inside, even though it was like an opaque hose. That the neon glow was so bright you could see it in the hose. And I had no idea it was going to do that. It was really surprising. So I'm sitting on a platform holding the neon, this tube that's 3 feet long with neon in it, and it's blindingly bright because it's got 35,000 watts of current going through it. And that was the finale of the show. So we went out on a really high note, and everything worked. That was the best part, because I had spent hundreds of hours in preparation and tested everything, thoroughly tested it. We tested it on site at the venue. It's a resort hotel where the event was held, and tested everything. Then we put a big box around the coil, and the box was enormous. It was 10 feet tall and 5 feet by 5 feet. And it was black painted wooden box, very nicely made, only used once. And then they said, do you want it? I said, no, I have no way to store it. So they threw it away. So they spent 10 grand on this box.
Wow.
And the point of the box was to conceal the coil from the conference goers. And it worked. And it also protected it from rain, because there was torrential rain the night before our show. So we were initially going to go on right after a talk between William Shatner and Jeff Bezos and Mark Bezos. But raining so hard that we're going to put you on tomorrow night after Jewel.
Wow. That's awesome.
It was cool. Yeah. Unfortunately,
Cool.
See the show. He did his thing, and then he just immediately left the hotel. I think we never saw him again. I was hoping he would go to the show. I was dying to get a picture of me and William Shatner.
I mean,
yeah,
me and my, but it didn't happen, unfortunately.
so
May.
it sounds like this just, I mean, to hear you talk about this, and I'm sure you've heard the pun before, you really light up, like you really enjoy this, and you still get a kick out of it, and you still clearly love experimenting with it. Does it still holds that kind of, again, forgive the pun, charge?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of my masterpiece of theater, I mean, my contribution to the performing arts. It's my masterpiece. I'm sure I'll never come up with anything even remotely as good as this in terms of in the performance space. I think what's fun is that I also have I have a career as a physicist, and an image infrared technology consultant, and that's my main gig. That's my day job. But Megavolt is like It's like a calling in some ways.
For more information on Dr. Megavolt, check out his website, that's drmegavolt.com. He's on Facebook, where he's at facebook.com/Dr. DOCTOR Megavolt. And you can also find him on YouTube, where he's at youtube.com/user/Dr. DOCTOR Megavolt. And if that is not enough, the documentary Dr. Megavolt From Geek to Superhero is available to watch right now on Tubi.
Why the Podcast is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts because we're shallow and need constant validation. For more information, you can check out our website, whythepodcast.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show was recorded and produced by Heidi Hedquist and myself from our world headquarters, located on the second floor of the Professional Office Building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?